Well, at the Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries Program, we're always trying to make sure that the decisions we make when it comes to conservation and management efforts are science-driven. And so having an institution like the Harte Research Institute here, local, at our back door essentially, has been great, helped us enhance the science that we're using to make those decisions. And that has taken the form of different projects over the years, whether it's focusing on water quality or bird habitat or oyster restoration. There's researchers and faculty that are tackling all these important issues that we also are concerned with on the Texas coast.
HRI and its impact, particularly in the policy space through really good science, has been transformative. And probably my earliest memory of it goes back to 2003. There was significant change in speckled trout management in Texas. And it was to help conserve larger speckled trout.
It's a long story now, certainly, given HRI's beginning. But what it's really allowed us to do is enhance our applied efforts, our applied management, using the research that they do here. Some specific examples, for example, was for spotted sea trout. We were making a regulation change, and there was question about the release mortality of bigger fish, because we had done studies earlier on about release mortality, but the population hadn't rebuilt yet. So now we had size classes that were a lot bigger, and we were able to team with HRI, and they were able to come in and immediately do a quick study. And basically they found the same thing that we had found before. And that really gave confidence to the people and the recreational anglers that we were on the right path and doing the right thing.
It was fascinating because what we found was the angling public, our members, didn't necessarily believe those larger trout survived after being caught recreationally. And so that's when Greg and I first talked, and he initiated a catch and release study on trout in general, but those big trout in particular. And the thing that was so important about that collaboration that still manifests today is that, there's this wonderful nexus where policy and science meet. And that's what HRI really is. That's what HRI has brought to our space. The Parks and Wildlife Department can put a policy in place and you can even enforce it. But the best policies are the ones that the public actually identifies with and agrees with and believes. And that's what this study was able to do, is it showed people, hey, these fish are living and it's really worth working hard to follow this regulation, this policy.
The long-term benefits are many, many, many. What we've been able to do with that collaboration is really use that applied science that helps us in management. And it really gives confidence to our legislators, to our decision makers, to our recreational and commercial interests that we're using the best science, and that in addition to Texas Parks and Wildlife Science, we've got other people who are helping to blend into that science, and it's kind of a third party kind of check and balance on the work that we do. And so that's really important to the state of Texas and to the people who are using that resource.
So I think the biggest long-term benefit is the fact that we can work on these large-scale, very long-term restoration management initiatives. Often the things we're focusing on take years to fix. We have a beautiful Texas coast, but there are problems, and in some cases those are fairly large scale. So if you look at Baffin Bay, for example, we've seen the water quality going down for a number of years, and the public's very concerned about that. We're very concerned about that, and having the partnership with the Harte Research Institute to address those problems has been crucial. Getting the science to show us where we needed to pinpoint our efforts, and recognizing that the science needs to keep going while we're focusing on these restoration and management efforts, to see the benefits hopefully over time, but also just guide us in the right direction. Some of these solutions for these problems are really expensive and take a long time, so we want to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right place.
In addition, HRI and the department really tries to understand what those resource users need and how they go about their business, and how we can help them go about their recreational interest or their commercial interest in a better, more sustainable way. And that's part of that partnership that we have with HRI.
And again, it all comes down to policy and science. The thing that sets HRI apart is really that it's not just science for science. And that's what Coastal Conservation Association, that we do policy and we advocate, and we try to do it all based on sound science. And so having an institute like HRI that focuses on doing the science that's directly applicable to good policy work, it not only has been transformative in the past, but I think that will only accelerate from here. We face more and more challenges on the Texas coast in particular, but everywhere. And HRI is able to touch everything, local, state, regional, federal, all of it. All that science matters, and all of that policy is just going to become more and more important.
One of the things that we've been able to do is, I kind of call it the intellectual capital sharing that we do. And that intellectual capital sharing goes from having HRI members serve on advisory committees, to the department having us work with them as well on various projects, sharing across those project lines. It's basically that collaboration on that day-to-day activity that we do out there in the research world. And it really gives us an opportunity to bring the university in, to bring Parks and Wildlife in and the practitioners in, and really do that work in a higher level fashion and in a higher science fashion than we would otherwise.
One that I hold really near and dear to my heart is working with Dr. Jenny Pollock on her carbon sequestration study. We were able to help early on with some of the funding and trying to facilitate some of the funding. And that collaboration could be a huge piece of our future on the Texas coast. There's obviously a lot of interest in carbon capture. It's obviously significant to a lot of companies. And if that science comes through that shows exactly what that carbon capture is and how significant it is, can you imagine the amount of dollars that could get funneled into oyster restoration? And you know, there's no more depleted habitat on this globe than that. And I think things like Dr. Pollock's study is not only producing the good science, but is also elevating the issue. The funny thing about oysters is they're probably one of the most important pieces of habitat, but they're not one of the cool kids. You know, they're not coral, they're not seagrass. And so doing things like that science help us on the policy side too, to better conserve oysters, better restore oysters, and set ourselves up for a long future of healthier oyster populations.
So I think one of the unique things that about the collaboration between our particular organization, the Coastal Bend Bays Estuaries Program, and HRI, is the fact that we both bring a kind of a unique expertise to the partnership. So I think the estuary program, you know, we really focus on being a stakeholder-driven, very collaborative organization that's working a lot with our partners to drive the issues that we're working on and the solutions that are identified. And so I think having we bring that kind of stakeholder engagement, ability to partner with a lot of different types of entities, whether it's the agencies, whether it's the public, or you know, the industry partners in our area. And then you have folks at the Harte Research Institute that can tackle policy issues, economic issues, research issues, all the different things that you want to really, that often are needed in order to drive a project home. And so I think that collaboration makes it really strong. The short answer is we want to make a Texas coast that's ready for the issues that we have now, but maybe what's to come in the future, right? Build a stronger Texas coast that continue to provide the beautiful, serene habitats that we all like to enjoy and fish in and be safe in those waters. And so, you know, just making sure that we have the framework here to provide for that long-term benefit for the Texas coast.
The legacy I would hope we can leave is that we leave better science and better collaboration than when we started. And certainly, I think we're on the path to do that. We've got a great partnership now, and it's because of all the colleagues here at HRI that we work with and many of my team members work with. And it's just the ability to use that effort in a way that's going to really benefit the freshwater inflows, the bays and estuaries, the aquatic organisms, the habitats, all the way from the in-stream flows all the way out to the blue water, and really be able to protect those organisms for a sustainable future. Not only for use today, but really for use for those future generations.
The collaboration between CCA and HRI is significant, and in particular the Center for Sportfish Science and Conservation. That probably is the biggest piece of that puzzle for CCA. I can see 100 years from now that partnership is as significant, if not more than it is now. You know, science is always going to be important, and right now with a lot of people moving to the Texas coast that probably aren't going away, having strong science to guide strong policy, good policy, that's the future. That's what's going to define the success of our coastal ecology. And I think it's partnerships like CCA and HRI are going to be the real thought leaders.